I want to go ahead and introduce my guest that's coming up at the top of the hour, and just tell you a little bit about her and what she focuses on. Jeannie Winters is my guest. She is the founder and co-owner of Divinely Inspired Messages, and she's supported clients for many years through that business with mediumship, astrology, human design charting, which is what we're really going to focus on today with her. Jeannie uses astrology and human design along with her intuition to help people find their way in life, answering nagging questions, prepare for upcoming obstacles, and help them with how to get back on track to move forward with more peace and ease in their lives. And you might ask, what is human design? It is a practice that uses a person's birth date, time, and place to create a body graph that describes their life purpose and how they interact with the world. It's absolutely amazing. I've had Jeannie has done that for me, and it was eye-opening. It's also based on a combination of ancient and modern disciplines, including astrology, the I Ching, Kabbalah, and quantum physics. So absolutely amazing. I'm going to bring us into the next hour with all of our kind of opening promo stuff. And then once that's through, I'm going to bring Jeannie on live with us. So sit tight, folks. Jeannie, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Ah, perfect. It is your actual voice.
Wonderful.
I love it. That is awesome. Hold on one second, Jeannie. Yeah, that is great. Okay, good. So I have introduced you now about 12 times, told everybody about you and your practice. But having said that, and I also talked about human design, just from my perspective. But now that you're here, let's just jump right in, I think, so we can use as much time as we possibly can, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So even though I've told my listeners a little bit about human design and how it works, I'd love to hear from you, from your perspective, since you're the expert, just a brief overview of what human design is and how it works.
Sure. So human design is a self-knowledge system. It's comprised of 4 modern sciences, which are quantum mechanics, genetics, physics, and biochemistry, along with 4 ancient teachings, which are the Kabbalah, the I Ching, astrology, and the chakra system. Together, all you need is your date, time, and town of birth, and literally everything about your life unfolds. And that's what I love the most about it, because I don't have to ask any questions about past history or, I just go straight to what I'm reading, and it's exactly what you came here to experience.
That's fantastic. That's a great description of it. How did you first discover human design, and what drew you to it?
Well, that's a little long, so I'll try to keep it short. But so since I was little, I used to hear, I would know things. I didn't know how I knew it. I just knew it. Like I would know that childhood was quote unquote a setup. And I didn't understand really what that meant so much, but I knew I used to hear things like, remember this. If something happened, I'd hear a voice say, remember this. And so I knew it was significant, but I didn't know why. So throughout my whole, till I was like 21, I used to get all these different things. And then it kind of got lost in the, finding myself through the 20s and 30s. And then around in the 40s, I really wanted to, because I have kids, I wanted to really understand things better and understand why, why did I get all those messages? I heard I was different. I wasn't better. I wasn't, better than anybody else. I was just different. And literally, suicide was never an option. I don't know why that was even brought up in my head when I was a kid, and drugs were never an option. Literally, none of that was allowed in my head because I had to do something and I would know. Well, in my 40s, I figured I must have passed it. I must have missed whatever it was that I was supposed to do because I was in my 40s already. But what happened was I went to church and I started trying to really get into things there. And no matter what people would say, no matter how hard I would try to follow everything, and I would literally volunteer for everything. I was an usher, I was a school teacher, I was, everything you could be in church. It still wasn't, my life was a mess and I couldn't understand why. I was doing everything. And so to the point where I had somebody in my family who was an elder said, you must be lying about how you're living because no one has this much turmoil in their life if they're living right. And it was just devastating to me. So I started looking at different things, excuse me. And I went to a church and a different church, and they told me that I wasn't hearing things that I was hearing and that I wasn't special. And then, so I tried another church and they said, they were talking to me about, the gifts of the spirit. And they were like, oh, you're prophetic, da, 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 da. And I was like, oh, okay, well, if the church says it, then I must be prophetic, right? And so they asked me to sit on a prophecy team, and I did for like 5 years. And people would come in and we would tell them all the stuff that we heard. And then after a while, I was getting so much stuff that the elders said, you're embellishing. And I literally cried my eyes out because I was like, why would I do that? As if they knew more about what was happening than I did. And somebody else said, are you embellishing? And I was like, no. They said, are you hearing what you're hearing? I'm like, yes. And they said, everybody that we sit in front of cries when you say the things that you say. I mean, it hits home. And I'm like, oh, yeah. So I felt like I was literally not supposed to stay in church. So I pulled away from the church and I started learning all about this metaphysical stuff, and I started getting scared. So this is what a lot of people understand. I didn't want to go to hell for anybody. Okay. I was like, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, I'm a Christian. I don't want to go to hell for anybody. If this stuff is real, I actually put it out there. I said, if this is real, show me how it connects to what I already believe. It took a year, but it finally did. And along the path, I got books, people, videos, all sorts of different things. And I finally found human design. And what happened with human design, you want to talk about mind-blowing. Everything in my chart said I was going to hear messages from the other side that you don't know how you know what you just know it, and you know it to be true. And my chart spells out exactly what I do for a living. It actually says you'll get messages from the other side and you will help people, ordinary people, understand how it connects to their lives so that they can be more peaceful. Literally says that in my chart.
Wow.
And that is where I got blown away.
That's very, very cool. I love that. How does understanding one's human design chart impact their daily life and decision making? So
it's actually quite interesting. Once you start to understand everything, it's all about your everyday. So once you understand your type, authority, and strategy, that helps tremendously, because what it does is it lets you know how your energy interacts with everybody else. So depending on there's 5 different or 4 different types, depending on how you look at it. And if your energy is like mine is, I'm a manifester, and mine is so intense that you either love me or you hate me. There is no in between. And I have a repelling aura, which pushes people away. So understanding that now, when I walk up into someone's space, I can tell immediately, are they on the love me or hate me side? And so I know to back off, right? So I get less resistance.
Right.
So with every type, it lets you know how to interact with people, whether it's your family, whether it's your coworkers, whether it's at school, no matter how old you are, how to interact with people with the least amount of resistance, as well as how you are supposed to go through life. So people don't even know that some people are not supposed to have major experiences in different areas. They're supposed to do more of the research. So they're the marketing experts and things like that. But maybe the family kind of pushes toward being outward, going out. Well, then you feel like a failure. But if you understand this is your path, this is where you're supposed to be, your day to day gets so much easier because it's like you start to feel what's supposed to happen. You start to tap into your intuition, and then life just becomes easier.
Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic. How is human design different from, say, other, personality, identification, whether it's just straight astrology or something like your Enneagram chart? How is human design different then?
Yeah, or Myers-Briggs.
Or Myers-Briggs, yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah. So I took all those tests, and I never understood why it wasn't exactly who I am, because I feel like I'm pretty straightforward. The difference in those types of tests is because they ask you a bunch of questions. The problem is, there's on the surface, you may say, oh, I'm very extroverted, and you want to be extroverted, but you may not really be extroverted, and somebody may, disagree. But that's really not what the thing is. What most people don't understand with astrology, you have all of your information on your astrological chart, on your natal chart, is who you are and who you know yourself to be. Do you like spicy food? Are you extroverted? Are you do you like this type of music? Whatever it is, right? Now, what most people don't know is that 3 months before you're born, your soul actually enters your body, and it's what we call your incarnation date or your design date. And that is a whole different chart. What that is those are the things you are, but you came here to learn about yourself. And the thing is that when you look at someone else, you can see their design, but they might not know it yet, right? So you may say, oh my gosh, you're so organized. And they look at you like, oh my gosh, I am so not. It's just they haven't picked that up in themselves yet. It hasn't become a true trait of theirs. And everybody can see each other's red, or it's in red, that's why I call it that, in their design, but you can't see your own until you develop into it, right? So there's a huge difference. And the information that we give you from your two sides, from your personality side and your design side, is it's much more than you would get in a personality test, but it is spot on.
Yeah.
As opposed to just your opinion.
Yes. Yeah. And I have to, just from my own personal experience, because, and I told my audience before you came on that you had done my chart, and that you and I had sat down and spent a lot of time going through it. And the difference for me between that and doing a Myers-Briggs or a Enneagram or anything like that was the depth of information that it provides in so many different areas of your life, right? And I loved how that it really focuses on, as well, on the chakras, right? And how that plays into your human design at the same time, right? So,
you're talking about the auric fields?
Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly.
So, would you like me to go into that alone?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So everybody has, and as science knows, we have energy that we exude from our bodies. And so some people call it energy centers, or, auric center. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's just energy that comes off of your body. Depending on your type, will depend on how big your auric field is. So mine is the smallest one because it's a repelling aura. So it's like only like 2 to 4 feet around. It's a radius, so it's coming out from every part of your body. The largest would be the generators, and that's about 8-foot radius. Okay, and that's because they're meant to reach everybody, right? Now, if you have, let's say you have 2 generators, it doesn't matter if you're the same type or not. As soon as you step into each other's auric field, so one person has 8 foot, the other person has 8 foot, so 16 feet. If you are within 16 feet of another person in any direction, you're literally taking on their energy from areas that you are open in, which we haven't even gotten to, but we have certain places in our body where we are defined, and that means that we have consistent energy there. So I may have consistent energy in my head center, but not in my what we call a G center, which is my direction, my life direction, and my love, right? So I'm meant to taste test other people's G centers who are defined. So when they step into my field, my auric field, I can feel what they feel as far as their life direction. So I'm meant to understand what they feel about their work, about their, environment and all that. If someone has an open emotional center and another person has a defined emotional center, they take that in, and they not only, when you feel someone else's stuff that you don't usually have, you actually amplify it 2 or 3 times as much. So this is why when someone walks into another person's field and that person has an open emotional center, they will overfeel that person's emotions. So all of a sudden they may get very sad and not know why they're sad. And that person may have just had an argument with a spouse and they're not telling that person. But all of a sudden you've got this emotion that you don't know what to do with it. So you give it a place in your own life when it's really not yours.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That helps a lot of people on the day-to-day.
Yeah, absolutely. And since we're talking about energy types, right, and that energy, how do the different energy types, I think, the 4 that are coming to me, manifestors, generators, projectors, reflectors, right? Mm-hmm. How do they interact with each other?
So each one of them, so the average person, 70% of the world is some type of a generator. There's generators and there's manifesting generators. That's a subtype. So they actually have, they go out and they feel energy from everything that's around them. And they are here to respond to that energy, right? Does someone need something? Do I want to help them? Do I want to step in? Then you have reflectors, which to me are the most interesting because they have no definition in any of the centers. And what they do is they take in everybody's energy. But what they do is they mirror it back to you. So when you're around a reflector, you actually are seeing yourself. They're sampling little bits and pieces of your auric field, and they are sampling it back to you, right? They can't be around lots and lots of groups of people for long periods of time because it's literally exhausting for them. But they actually have an ability to tell you if something is safe or not, which I find that extremely interesting. They're only 1% of the world. And then you have like projectors are here to guide people. So projectors have a projecting energy that actually penetrates each one of us and actually can read everything about you, about your person, and can say, oh, you may want to go in this direction, or, have you ever thought about going in that direction? It's the whole idea about being a guide.
Right.
Whereas manifestors energy is here to initiate. We're here to start things, but we don't have the energy to get it to the next point, right? So I can come up with this amazing idea, throw it out into the universe, and then someone else like a generator or a manifesting generator will actually pick that up and say, oh, we can do this from take this. That's why there's so many of them, because they make it happen.
Right.
So we interact very easily without even realizing it on a regular basis.
Yeah, just because of the energy types.
Right.
How does human design align with or complement our spiritual awakening and personal growth?
So I think it's really pivotal because you start to understand a lot of people go through life feeling that feeling from childhood that they are meant to do something or they're here for a purpose. And because we're so conditioned by our environment, our family, our schooling, we feel like only if you make this kind of money are you successful. Only if you are married with children, or if you're, I had a client whose family was all accountants, and she when she was a kid, she loved animals. And her father actually told her, no child of mine is going to work with dirty animals.
Mm.
And so she stopped at some point thinking about animals and literally was just conditioned to go toward accounting. She came to me at 28 and she said, I'm miserable. My life is horrible. And I don't understand why. I make good money. I meet people. I do, and she's just like, what am I doing wrong? And so she felt literally, spiritually, that she was being punished for something. And because she was doing the actions that she should have. Well, I told her about her chart and how she was meant to actually work with animals. She literally has a way that they can understand her and she can understand them. And she said, oh my gosh, I can't, and we actually talk about it. Most people lose themselves when they start dating, because they start liking what other people like, because they're not on their own path anymore. They're trying to mix with people. So I said, go back to your childhood and remember what you used to do when your parents would leave you to your own, devices. And she was like, yeah, I played with my dog. I played, I had a fish and da-da-da. So she ended up, after a few months, she came back and she said, I cannot tell you what a difference that made in my life. She said, I went and I registered. She goes, because I have a degree, I have most of my credits. She goes, I'm going to go for the veterinary school and I only need 1 year. She said, and my whole outlook on life has changed. She said, I seriously thought God was mad at me. And I said, isn't that amazing? Isn't it?
Yes.
And she said, this is like, it's like a switch that you just turned on. She's like, that's insane. So, and then along with that, she learned how her and her boyfriend were engaging and why they would get into arguments, because, that's part of it too. We can teach that. And she said that they get along so well that they know exactly what the other one's experiencing at the time and they know exactly what to do to move on. She said it's a game changer.
Yeah. And I think what you just illustrated is one of the big benefits I feel to human design, that it can absolutely help people discover their life purpose or their soul mission, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
Sorry. Yeah. So here's the crazy part. So I don't know if people know much about neutrinos, but neutrinos is the smallest particle that has been, the smallest that has been able to be measured as matter. Okay. So, we've had atoms and all this other stuff. And now in 2015, scientists won an award for finding this. 70% of neutrinos come from the sun. 30% come from the stars and Jupiter. This is where it's interesting. So neutrinos carry information. And as every time we think about something, okay, we put it into what we call the collective consciousness, right? So imagine all this information swirling above our heads. So if I say, I really wish I knew what my purpose was. I wish I knew. And then people all over the world are saying it at the same time. If I only knew what my purpose was, I wish someone would give me a map. Da, 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 da. Well, the neutrinos are always passing through that collective consciousness. And we get 3 billion of those neutrinos going through our body every second of the day.
Wow.
So anybody who is looking for that type of information, but has been set up from birth to discover something like that. Okay, so there's a lot of different things that happen. They'll take that information in, and if they have free will, if they decide to act on it, they'll start to develop different systems. Well, there's a lot of things that go along with it. We're ignoring messages all day long from the universe. You have to really be tapped in and then do something with it. And the person who actually had the experience for this, he was on a sabbatical. There was a whole bunch of stuff that was going on that just put him in the right position to absorb that information and create this. So we do it all day long. I mean, everybody can do it. It's just paying attention.
Right. Yeah. So just as a reminder for everybody that's listening, you are listening to Wake Up Laguna with Rick Jorgensen and my guest, Jeannie Winters. and we're talking about human design. So you touched on it a little bit when you were talking about especially that one client that you had in using human design to help improve relationships, right? Whether it's romantic, family, professional type thing, right? Because it provides some pretty clear guidance there as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. Extremely good guidance.
Yeah.
So there really are no perfect charts for connections. And there's no, horrible charts, but there are different variations that you can understand. So if I take one person's chart and another person's chart and do a connection, I can see where the two of you will get along. There are things called electromagnetic connections. That's what you have when you meet somebody and you're totally attracted to them initially. That means that you have one side of a channel that the other person has the other side of a channel for, and you literally are like a magnet to each other in those areas. Then you have areas where they're like friendship areas, where you have the same thing defined. Then you have dominance channels, which is one person has the whole channel and the other person doesn't have it at all. And that's where you teach each other. The channels, what you want to be careful of, are the compromise channels. So one person has a whole channel defined and the other person only has half. What that area is where you got, and there may be more. I have 4 with someone. And what happens is after you're around them, because if you're open in a certain area, you're not supposed to have consistent energy there. So if you're around somebody for many, many hours without a break, you're going to start to get irritated. The thing is that the person with the full channel never feels the difference, but the person with the half channel feels like the other person is intentionally trying to argue with them. And so they're actually both right and they're both wrong.
Yeah.
So the person is being irritated, and they are being irritated from the person with the full channel, but not by that person, by their energy. And the person, sorry.
No, what comes to mind is, you did my partner's chart, Leslie, as well, and you brought them together. And one of the things that I got from reading the kind of the relationship between the two of us is that we need space. And when I am home working from home, it's probably not a good idea, because even though she's in another room across the house, it's a small enough space to where that's not enough space. So it's like I need to make sure as often as I can to get out and go to someplace else as a workspace.
Yep.
And spend, several hours away before I come back. And that was interesting because energetically I kind of picked up on that, right? Just without knowing it, right? I picked up on that. But then reading it, it was almost like you have to chuckle a little bit and go, oh, okay, now I get it. Now I understand. All right, well, now I'm really going to be, have that awareness. I think for me, a lot of what it gave me was a self-awareness. A self-awareness, right, of my tendencies or patterns or attractions or things that I'm really good at, and things that I should be pursuing or things that I should work on. And that's a large part of it, right? I mean, it gives you that direction.
Yeah, and so we didn't go there are 9 centers, and in each of the centers are numbers, which we call gates. There are 64 of them. In the 64, they actually correlate to the codon 64, which is our DNA. Each one of those numbers is a personality trait. And then each personality trait has 6 different ways, we call those lines, 6 different ways that they could act itself out, right, in the world. So the reason that that's important is if you know how you act things out in the world, again, this is a self-knowledge system, right? It helps you understand why you do what you do, just like you said. And so with the open centers, it's the same thing. You don't have a specific way to act, but that other person does. And so when you take on their energy, you truly feel like they're pushing their will on you. You feel like they're trying to get you to do things their way. And all they could be asking you is, hey, did you take the garbage out? And you're like, oh, I have to take garbage out? Are you kidding? Even if you were just going to take the garbage out, this is about the will center, right? If you have it open and another person has it defined, they come up to you and they're like, hey, you taking the garbage out? You could be tying the garbage. All of a sudden you want to put it down. You're like, yes, I'm going to take it out after I do the dishes or after I go on a jog, or I'll do it before I go to bed, because you are so irritated that that person stepped in and tried to push their will on you when they were just trying to start a conversation. But if you understand that, you don't have to have this blow up and then later say, I don't know why I overreacted. I apologize. I'm sorry. I was going to take the trash out. If you know this, when you feel that energy burst, you can laugh at it and say, oh, that's what that is. I'm going to tell you something really cool. I have the best example of this. I have been divorced for 10 years at least. And my ex and I, we wanted to kill each other. But we were friends for the kids. We're really good at co-parenting. When I started doing this, I would teach him a little bit here and there, and he started understanding so much and getting so in tune with his whole structure. We're dating now.
Wow.
We have been dating. We actually lived together. For over a year, because literally we wanted to kill each other, but because now we understand why we do this, we laugh about it. We literally say, when something happens, when one of us gets irritated, we created this sign where we're like, the timeout sign. That actually means we're triggered. One of us is triggered by something. And the other one of us just leaves the house and we go get a cup of coffee and then we come back. If you can get out of each other's energy for more than 16 feet in any direction, regardless if there are walls in the way, because the energy goes through walls, if you can step away for 20 minutes, your body will purge the other person's excess energy and you can re-engage with that person as if nothing ever happened. You don't have to have unnecessary arguments, because we go through these arguments not knowing what it's from, and the other person thinks we're crazy because they don't understand any of this, and vice versa, that when you get to the end of the argument, you don't even know why you were mad. That's how you know it wasn't yours, right? And how many times do we do that? And all we have to do is say, oh, being triggered, let me, step out. And then you come back in and everything's fine. And I am telling you, this is truly the relationship I always wanted. And I always knew I could have. I just thought he was crazy. But it was me that not knowing my structure and him not knowing his. Yeah. And now everything moves so smoothly. It's insane. We don't even argue. It's crazy.
That's amazing. That is fantastic. And that is a great testament as to people understanding that design, understanding their chart, understanding their interactions and what to do with it. And the other thing too that you said, you're talking about energy and just, getting in that space where if you could just get away for 20 minutes out of that, it completely changes the energy. And, which it's almost like, if you're in the middle of an argument, or you just had an argument and it's still heated and you're sitting there and you're wondering what the heck just happened, even going out and just taking a walk for 20 minutes or something, right? And then coming back to the house, the energy is completely changed at that point. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So, one of the things I want to make sure everybody is aware of and know is, of course, I'm recording this like I record all of my shows, and Jeannie's information on how you can contact her, and her website, etc., will be in my show notes on my show page at kxfmradio.org. It'll also be on my YouTube page because I'll upload this show to YouTube probably later today. So that information for Jeannie will be there as well, because I would encourage you to reach out to Jeannie about your human design chart, about her doing this for you and setting up a consultation with Jeannie. And it's not just doing your chart, because the chart on the surface, as you look at your chart, it can be kind of like mind-boggling. And so you need somebody to help walk you through this chart to get that basic understanding. Once you have that, then you can dive into it and you can look at the numbers and you can look at the lines and you can go deeper into it. But Jeannie, what I think you do such a wonderful job of is really giving people a understanding of, so now that we have this in front of us, this is what it means. And this is what it means for you personally in your relationships, in your family. This is what it means for you in your career or your entrepreneurial journey and what your strengths are and you know, your life's purpose. So it really has all of those elements. But I do think that you absolutely need a guide, and you're the guide. You know, Jeannie is the guide. So, yeah, I absolutely encourage you to do that. We're running out of time, Jeannie, and so is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with about human design that you think they really should know as kind of a takeaway?
So first, I want to say that they can, if they go to my website, I am actually offering 30% discount for anybody who heard it on Laguna, Wake Up Laguna, so that they have an idea of, you know, yeah, it's it actually specifically says it. The other thing is, I don't believe that everybody should spend a ton of money to find out who they are. And so I do give a lot of free information and tell them where to go. So I don't want them to feel like I'm going to lock them into courses and stuff. I could not find this for years. And now that I have it, I'm not one of those people who is going to beat your purse. You know, I just want you to understand what you're looking at. And then you can go on the web and find all this free information and contemplate it yourself.
Yeah.
Just understand the structure. If you're having trouble anywhere in your life, I mean, there's just so many things to it. It gives you not only your true purpose, but how your purpose plays out in your life and all the little details. So if you want to know, if you want to start moving forward in your life, especially because this year and next year, the planets are changing so drastically that people are going to feel very shaken and very much out of whack, I can help you get aligned better than you've ever been before. And this is not because it's me. It's just because I understand I had to do this all myself. And so I had to bring it to a point where it makes sense. If you don't understand the verbiage, it gets very confusing. Yeah. So if I can help anybody, I would love to. Just reach out to me at the website. It's awesome. Should I say where the website is?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's divinelyinspiredmessages.com. And
again, I will have that link in my show notes and on my YouTube page as well. But yeah, I encourage you absolutely to reach out to Jeannie. Jeannie, in spite of our technical difficulties, we were able to connect. This has been wonderful. I definitely want to have you back and spend more time and dig a little bit deeper into some other areas of human design that we weren't able to talk about because there's just so much that could be dove into. So, yes. Jeannie, thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it as always. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you, Jeannie. Okay. Bye-bye. Wow. As always, another fantastic guest. Jeannie is such a great person, such a beautiful soul. She's helped me so much with the charting. I absolutely love it. So let me just say, and I'll wrap it up here for us and wrap it up for the day, for the show. Thank you very much for listening to Wake Up Laguna. Again, I am blessed to have this time slot with KXFM, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate all of you. I want you guys to go out, have a great rest of your week. Be appreciative for what you have. Love who you are. Love yourself. Love those around you. And I will see you next week at the same time. Have a great one.
KXFM 1047, Laguna's Community Radio. Join me, Chris Amadeo, on Vagabond Soul Radio, Wednesdays 8 to 10 p.m. on KXFM. It's a deep dive into the music and zeitgeist of the entire decade of the 70s. Join me, 8 to 10 p.m. Wednesdays on KXFM. Tune in, turn on.
Greetings, friends and neighbors. George Dubin with you. I'm your host for Art Matters on Tuesdays at 1 p.m., where myself and my learned guests talk about the issues facing our creative community here in the Art Colony. So please tune in to KXFM 1047 at 1 p.m. on Tuesdays. And remember, friends, the soul and vitality of any community is often measured by how they treat their creatives.
Hello, and welcome to Beth and Steve's Mondays. I want to just say we're so happy to be a part of this thing that's going on here. Every hour, you don't know exactly what it's going to be because nobody